Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hello and welcome to How I Double, the show where we take a look at businesses that have doubled their turnover in the last 2 years. My name's Pete Kvist. A business that generates over $20 million a year in turnover is doubling their turnover year on year, and it works in the wine industry. It sounds like a dream come true. Today, we're going to talk to someone who does exactly that. Please welcome CEO of Naked Wines International, Luke Jecks. Luke, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Mate, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on board today, but a very busy schedule. You were just saying you just got back from the Barossa Valley yesterday.
Yeah, a day in the Barossa yesterday, which all of my friends and family think sounds like the perfect trip, but yeah, it was a long journey down for 2 meetings and then a journey back.
Because the reality is, of course, that yes, it's fantastic when you talk about the fact that you work in the industry, but it is also a lot of hard work involved too.
Yeah, it is. Any business is. I can't say though that it's horrible working in the wine industry. It's fantastic, and if you work with a great product, then that can make difficult tasks more fun. But every business in the end is a business. Okay,
so tell us a little bit about Naked Wines. What does Naked Wines actually do?
That's a great question. It's one that we've always found hard to explain because it's quite multi-layered. But ultimately, we're an online retailer. But then we're actually an online dating agency because we connect winemakers and customers together. We are a crowdfunder. But in the end, look, we basically we produce wine, we fund the production of wine, and we introduce it to wine lovers or drinkers or consumers. And we underlay that with all of the potential that tech and digital can give you to break down the barriers that currently exist in accessing wine for both producers and customers.
Okay, I'm confused. There's a lot of moving parts
right
here. Okay, so for the customer, tell me what's their journey with Naked Wines, and then for the winemaker, what's their journey with?
Okay, so let's start with the customer. So for a customer, right now in Australia, 77% of all wine sold in Australia is sold by Coles and Woolies. So it's about 50% Woolies and 25% Coles. So for a customer at the moment, you've got basically two retailers that you can buy from, and two retailers who are doing a pretty good job of consolidating supply. So you're not really getting much choice, and we're certainly seeing diversity and creativity coming out of the process. Now that actually leads to the producer side of things, but we'll keep going with the customer. And the other element for the customer is that the power in the wine industry is really in the hands of a few people. So, if you're a customer, what wine should I buy? Unless you're an absolute expert, it's hard to know whether you're getting good wine, authentic wine, or whether you're paying a good price. So you're reliant on people like James Halliday, or you're reliant on really discounted prices. So for Naked Wines, our customers have an opportunity to connect directly to the producer. So that's the winemaker. Through a digital platform, they get to talk directly to the winemaker. They actually get a lot of power and say in what wines are made and so on. We've got 500,000 ratings on our site from customers. So I think if you were to conglomerate all the ratings on all of the sites around Australia for wine, I think we'd probably match it in size. And so our customers get to drink wine that is authentically made. They get to talk to the producer who's made it, and they actually get to be a part of the process on the way through.
So how did it all come about? Let's go back to day one.
Okay, so I started with the quote on the 77% of ownership from Coles and Woolies. The Australian wine industry and the wine industry in general has kind of been in a downward spiral for quite a while, and it's not as evident to the consumer as it is at the production end. And so we kind of were looking at, I was in the industry thinking this isn't working, and eventually we went, eventually I thought to myself, right, well, you can either keep complaining that it's not working, or you can actually do something about it. And so the opportunity to start Naked Wines in Australia came along, and we're looking at the way that businesses in Australia had started online, particularly in wine. Most of them had fallen to the wayside. There was a lot of carcasses on the road. And we kind of knew that, well, if you just go along with a really cool marketing name like Naked, and a slightly different approach, no guarantee of success, because you're still not going to be able to compete on price in the way that Coles and Woolies can compete. So we looked at it and thought, well, why can they do that? It's because they got all the market share. So we weren't able to do that, get that. We also said, well, what are they using that market share to do? And I think we know the stories, and we decided, well, we wouldn't do that either. And we were sitting there thinking, well, what's the opposite? What would be the opposite of that? And the opposite of that is being nice to winemakers. So we thought, well, how would that look? And most winemakers are just like chefs. They want to have their own restaurants, but wine production's a highly capital-intensive program. So they haven't got the opportunity to enter that market, or they have no distribution opportunities because it's all consolidated. So we thought that what would be nice for a winemaker look like was, well, what if we could fund winemakers? What could fund them to do their own projects? And what if we could provide them with a marketplace where they could create the wines they always wanted to make? They could be funded to do so, and they were connected to consumer, and that's kind of where it started.
What was the first step that you took, though? I mean, obviously on a grand scale now, it looks fantastic from the outside looking in, but it started with one winemaker.
Well, yeah, it started with we started with about 6 or 7 winemakers. I think it was April 2012. We went on a trip around Australia meeting winemakers, and we were meeting 3 types of winemakers. We're basically meeting them saying, hey, look, we know the industry's broken. We're trying to we've come up with a new way of doing it. We're going to use crowdfunding to provide you with the funds to go it alone, and you're going to have total creative execution over your wines. We met 3 types of winemakers. One would say, it sounds too good to be true, clink. The next group would say, sounds too good to be true, come back when it works. And the third said, you're absolutely right, something has to be done. This sounds excellent, we're in. And it was thankfully that third group, who were entrepreneurial in their own spirit, it really embraced it, and it gave us the first good kick. That was April, and by July we'd finally launched the site, and we were ready for customers to come and try these wines.
It's an incredible road to success, because you mentioned the date there. We're only talking a matter of a few years, going from an idea and a concept through to a business that's turning over in excess of $20 million.
Yeah, it's you're right, but I think that that sort of success isn't remarkable when you look at some of the components that fit into that. So firstly, let me just say, you're absolutely right. When I remembered in June the month before we launched, standing in a huge warehouse and looking there at all the wine that we'd invested in, going, oh my God, this better work. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But then by the Christmas, standing there and going, we haven't got enough wine. This is flying. And this is the reason it works. Because the product is great. If you give a winemaker the autonomy to creatively execute something that is supposed to be creative, of which they haven't had that autonomy before, they're used to being told. We've got to a place in the wine industry where winemakers are being told it needs to taste like this. So if you give them that autonomy, and then then you add to that autonomy the accountability through to the customer, because our customers talk directly to the winemakers, they rate the wines and all of that. In an environment where the winemaker is autonomous and completely accountable to the customer, you end up with a very high quality product. And it's the quality of the product that I think has made the company work. Now, if you overlay that with social and all the other things that I'm sure we're going to get into, then you can really capitalize on the success. But the reason it's success is the wine just tastes bloody great.
So let's take a look at some of the reasons we've got, and let's add it as a supplementary that the wine tastes bloody great.
Yeah.
And obviously we'll get into some of the details too. But the first point that I have here is the fact that you have a crowd-funded model.
Yep.
Now, a lot of people are watching this thinking, what the heck does that actually mean? We kind of touched on it there. At the essence of a crowd-funded model, why did you decide to go down that path? Okay.
So if you're looking at industry that has been in a price war, where we're fighting basically big business, we needed to come up with a way where we could fight that with numbers. And we hoped, and it's turned out to be true, that there'd be enough customers who said, you know what, I want something better as well, and I'm willing to get together with my fellow customers to make something amazing happen. And that's why the crowdfunding works, is it's that customers saying, actually together we're more powerful, and together we can make things happen. And the really nice thing about crowdfunding is that with crowdfunding, nobody gets screwed on the way. So, in the other model, it's either the customer gets screwed or the winemaker gets screwed. With crowdfunding, both our winemaker and our customers are all getting the benefits of the deal. And so they're getting the winemaker's not getting cut on price, the customer's paying a good price for the wines, and in the middle they're getting great quality. And there's no middleman in the middle trying to suck out all of that reward or all of that control.
And as with all good businesses, in the middle, you're creating deals, and that's where the revenue comes from.
Yeah, and so our focus then is, as I said at the start, then we just see ourselves as a kind of a dating agency. We facilitate these relationships between the customers and the winemaker, a group of customers who want to get together and have diversity and good wine and know the winemaker who's making the wine, and winemakers who want to make wine for those customers. We're in the middle making that happen. And, if anything, our responsibility is then just to provide the best service to both those groups and to use technology to empower both those groups.
It's a real disruption to a industry which has been pretty set in its ways for a long time, though. It's a bold statement to say we thought this would work, or we knew this would work, but you obviously backed yourselves. Yeah,
so we certainly backed ourselves. I wouldn't say that I was convinced it would work, but I was passionate enough to think that we would make it work. We were going to give it the best shot. And if it had a chance of working, we were going to make sure it happened. So I would say that.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.